Love between humans is just not easy, and without great examples or education about emotions, communication, sex, and what keeps love alive, it's too easy to be disheartened, settle, or give up on what you want most. I believe you can have the love and intimacy you want. And having coached thousands of people on their love lives for over 20 years, I know what love can be for you. So I'm bringing you people who share vulnerably about their dating and relationship struggles and how they learn to create the most connected, fulfilling, and exciting love and sex of their lives, so you can have it too. If you haven't yet taken the quiz to see what keeps you from having the best love and sex of your life, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. You'll get a personalized report of your strengths and challenges in the 5 crucial areas that lead to your most fulfilling and exciting love and sex life. Go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz to find out. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Practicing Love. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk about a topic near and dear to my heart, which is eroticism and Eros and the ways that we love and the ways that we love with our bodies and our energies and our hearts and our souls. I have an amazing guest here today, Darshana Avila. And Darshana is an erotic wholeness guide. Her work has been featured on Netflix's Sex, Love, and Goop, in The Guardian, The New Yorker, and numerous podcasts. And she's an incredible resource and someone I trust and feel very excited to learn from. So we're in for a treat. Thank you so much, Darshana, for being here.
I'm so happy to be here, Shana.
Yes. Can you give us a sense of what is erotic wholeness and how do you define eroticism?
Absolutely. Eroticism for me, and not my original definition, I want to be clear about that, but as I've come to understand Eros, it's more synonymous with life force energy, our vitality, whatever that animating force is. And so Eros absolutely is present in our sexuality, but it's also present in our creativity, our art, our activism. It's present in anything and everything that we're passionate about. So how we tend relationships of all sorts. And I think a lot of us hear the word erotic and associate it with like a very particular... Yeah. And it's almost like a version of sex that's like, ooh, like extra provocative. We use the word erotica to speak about literature, prose that is very sex forward. And so it's interesting because really, I think eroticism is a lot bigger than most of us are giving us credit for.
Yeah.
And yet the word is complicated. Sex is a complicated word. And I love getting to have these conversations because when we define it and really widen that lens of what eroticism can be, what it also does is create more spaciousness for that creative force. Yeah. So the pressure we tend to put on sex, the way that this can feel like a topic that's got a lot of weight to it. And obviously, it's important. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't care about your intimate life, is my guess.
No,
and this invites a way of being in a more expansive relationship with our erotic nature, our erotic energy, and how that is a part of our intimate lives.
Yeah, this feels so aligned. I mean, in my book, Honest Sex, I talk about what is sex actually and how to expand sex beyond the usual it's genitals or it's, penetration or any of that. And I love that this conversation expands it even more, right? That Eros is not just in the bedroom or in our bodies or in our sex life. There's so much of that animating life force.
Yeah. Like I real-time example, I happened to see a performance this past weekend that was by a dance company called Momix. And they do these like really amazing performance art pieces and it's dancing and it's wild and intriguing. And I came out of the theater and I was like, that was such an erotic experience, which is to say, every one of my senses was firing. I was dancing in my seat the whole time. I could not contain this aliveness in my body. I was gasping and squealing. I mean, literally things that you would associate with happening during sex. I was sitting in a theater fully clothed. I mean, I was hands on, holding hands with my sweetie next to me. But other than that, like it wasn't sexual, but it was sensual.
Mm-hmm.
It was enlivening. It really brought a lot of emotion forward for me.
Yeah.
And the sensations that I was feeling in my body, like just this, it couldn't be contained. So
Yes.
that's one example of eroticism in a totally non-sexual context. And I think when we give examples like this, most of us can actually relate to that. There's got to be
Yeah.
something that you've had a moment of in life where it's like, wow, that kind of pulsing energy just moves through you and you kind of can't stop it.
Can't stop it. Well,
Now,
but that also speaks to me of like how we are so taught to contain our
yes,
excitement and joy and energy and the impact that that has on our, our romance, our intimacy, even our parenting, all of our relationships.
very much so. The suppressing of this vital force is really doing us a massive disservice in all our relating.
Yeah.
And it plays into a lot of the cultural phenomenons that are so normalized and yet really are problematic too. People pleasing,
Yeah.
performative sex, perfectionism, all of these adaptive strategies that we take on really just serve to distance us from our most authentic expression of self.
Yeah.
So we suppress what is real, what is true, what is most alive in us in order to, I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to be polite, or I'm going to be
Love.
kind. And sure, that's why they're adaptive strategies. We adapt to how we believe we need to be to get
Yeah.
the love, the connection, the attention. So if anyone's listening to this, the last thing I want to do is have you feeling shamed because you're doing those things. Most
Right.
of us are. What I want to invite is the awareness and that we actually have a choice to dismantle those adaptive strategies in favor of a more authentic expression of ourselves. And
Yeah.
that, generally speaking, in my experience, and it's ample, I've been in the laboratory of my own body and life for 40 plus years now, and professionally been in private practice for over a decade doing this work. And I have yet to meet a person who has found it has not benefited them
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
expand their erotic expression.
Yeah. Can we bring this into a little bit of more concrete terms? Like, what do people come to you for? Do they actually, because a lot of
Sure.
people don't know, oh, my Eros is, dulled or any, like, so what are the things that people actually come to you for?
Yeah. So it is generally sex related, sex and intimacy related, why people are seeking me out. And it could be on one end of the spectrum, there's known trauma and
Mhm.
something is really blocked in that person's system, lived experience, where they're either not available to sex or sex is something that they're toughing it out through, enduring. They're feeling dissociated. And so we might work from the trauma remediation side of the spectrum initially to get to the point where exploring sexuality in a wider way is possible. For other people, it's a question of, yeah, sex is okay, but I have a sense that it could be a lot better, that ineffable something more. And a lot of that is down to being more present in your body, widening the field of what's possible. You talked about how in your book, the question of like, how do we define sex?
Mm.
Many of us define it very, very narrowly by a
So
culturally
narrowly.
script that regardless of your gender, regardless of your sexual orientation, I say sex, you think penis and vagina intercourse, because that's what we've been taught. And
Yeah.
we've also been taught that there is an escalator that once we get on it, the only way to get off is for that intercourse to happen and the penis to ejaculate, and then we get to be done. And that is so limiting to
Yeah.
everybody involved.
Yeah.
So, people come to me because they want to expand what sex can be. They want skills for cultivating genuine, sustainable intimacy, whether they're in a partnership presently, whether they aspire to be in one.
Yeah.
For other people, it's more a sense of, okay, like fundamentally sex is going all right. And what would it be like if I really gave permission to my deepest desires? Maybe I'm a little kinky. Maybe I want more passion. Maybe fill in the blank. There are aspects of myself that have not really been given a chance to express, and I want some guidance with that. which makes a ton of sense. Like, we seek out guidance and expertise for myriad things in our lives. Why not this?
Why not
Why
this?
not
And
this
it's
aspect that is so important?
yeah, it's so important. And because we've had such limited education or exposure to what could be, what could feel alive and erotic for us, there's often a deficit in a way, right? Like we're trying to, I don't want to say make up for lost time, but it's almost like there's so much pain that can happen because people are fumbling around without any guidance or support. And yeah, I imagine you've seen
I'm
that.
laughing because that exact sentence has come out of my mouth so many times, that the idea of, I often say, fumbling around in the dark. We are
Yes.
basically, regardless of our age, we are a bunch of overgrown teenagers
Yeah.
fumbling around in the dark because our sexuality has not matured. Our
Right.
understanding of sex, intimacy, eroticism has not necessarily matured beyond our most basic adolescent understanding of it. And that is given the fact that most of us don't get guided. We don't get educated. What passes for sex education in our culture is dismal at best, and so it does, what ends up happening, it's not all of my clients, but many of my clients come from backgrounds with like overt religious conservatism and or political conservatism, which can dovetail together. And so they've had a very, very narrow slice of the educational pie. And it's like then the pendulum swings to the other end and they're like, I want to know everything. that was withheld from me. And I'm like, yes, I want you to have that.
I love it.
We all deserve it. We all deserve it, regardless of our background, regardless of our lived experience.
Yeah. A lot of my clients too came from those backgrounds. And then, it's so fascinating to have two people come from sometimes similar backgrounds, sometimes different backgrounds. And on top of not being educated about sex, most of us weren't educated about our emotions or how to communicate when we're feeling vulnerable. And then, you mix all of that together and it can become such a mess even when there is love there. So, okay, can we go back to erotic wholeness? Like what would you say? How would you know if someone is erotically whole?
So I defined eroticism already. Let me talk about wholeness, and then maybe this will make a little more sense. Okay. Wholeness is a nod to the way that for most of us, what we've been doing our entire lives is carving pieces of ourselves off and like putting them into compartments over here, over there. And so we have a lot of disintegration going on. Wholeness is a nod to what happens when we actually scoop all those compartments up and gather everything to us and say, okay, my grief has a place here. My shame has a place here. My protective strategies has a place here. I just don't want them driving, but they actually have served a purpose. So it's really looking at ourselves. When I use the word holistic here, mind, body, spirit, sure, and really going into our psyche, going into all the ways that we've been scheming and strategizing our way through life, often very unconsciously, very subconsciously as well.
Like, and none of this some of those parts won't be loved, can't be be seen.
Right. And the reality is, we are intrinsically lovable. Even our most troubling acting out behaviors, even the things that we do that we might pathologize, like we are fundamentally lovable. That's my belief anyway. You don't have to agree with me.
I agree.
I will die on that hill.
I love the word intrinsic. So, I think I've been looking for a word recently, right? It's like we are intrinsically lovable even when we are not taught that, or we haven't been treated in that way.
Right. And we're not taught that implicitly and explicitly because we live in a dominant culture that fetishizes the divisiveness and the othering in any and every possible regard. Yeah. We're having this conversation at a moment where the political divisiveness, the social norms, and like so much us them. And the thing is, we've internalized all of that with our own selves, right? So to choose wholeness, to choose to look at, yeah, you know what? I do this thing that's kind of shitty sometimes. Ooh, ouch. Yeah, that's embarrassing. Like, and I'm lovable anyway.
And I'm lovable anyway.
I
Yeah.
love myself anyway. I
Yes.
want to let you love me
Yes.
anyway. Like
Yes.
that is really profound intimacy building. So when you put together eroticism as this more expansive idea of our vital life force energy and how that creative force expresses, and wholeness, you're then looking at somebody who is a really well integrated, grounded, open, available human who's connected to their body, who's connected to their heart, who can recognize when their judgments or when their protective strategies are at play, and actually has enough resource cultivated in their nervous system and in their mind to be able to rein that in. None of this is saying you got to be perfect 24/7, 365. I mean, this is my body of work and I'm not. What I am, however, is able to be accountable for times when I'm not at my best.
Yeah.
I'm able to express my needs and my desires and my boundaries with far more precision than younger versions of myself ever could.
Yeah.
So I can let you know, if you're in relationship with me, what it is that's going on. I can ask for help. These skills have everything to do with how we create safety, intimacy, delicious enjoyment and pleasure in our sex lives. But they also translate, and I'm not exaggerating when I say, to absolutely every other aspect of our life as well.
I agree.
So that's another nod to wholeness. Like it's not just what's going on in the bedroom. It's everywhere.
No, it's everywhere. And I think, as I think about sometimes what's in the bedroom is a very concrete way to understand or see certain dynamics that seem a little bit less visible in other areas. But like you're saying, it applies everywhere. So I love that sense of wholeness, and someone can show up with all of these parts, even the ones that we might feel like, ooh, that was not my best. That wasn't, I wouldn't do that again if I was really consciously choosing this. And I don't have to then go away and be alone and shame myself. I could actually come to my partner. I have enough of that wholeness to say, I'd like a do-over, or I want to treat you better than that, or wow, I really lost it for a moment, or any of those things.
Yeah. Because fundamentally, and I mentioned this in brief, but it deserves a little more attention, it has a lot to do with our nervous system's capacity and our nervous system, I'm going to say tone here, by which I mean, we hear the term a regulated nervous system. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that to mean I must be calm all the time.
Oh, it's good. Yes. Good distinction.
That's not a well-regulated nervous system. It means a well-regulated nervous system, you activate when it's appropriate. So you can get a little more assertive. You can be more in your dynamism, in that outward expressive energy. You also, if under true threat, the threat responses of fight and flee would kick in there when you either need to defend or get out the way because apex predator is coming around the corner or whatever it might be, So we are encoded with this for a reason. That's one half of it. The other half is I want to be able to settle down, to be more relaxed and receptive when the circumstances are aligned for that. And sometimes the threat response there is that's where we go into freeze states or fawn. Yeah. And fawn, there's a lot to say about fawn in relationship to intimacy, because anytime we are leading with a people-pleasing tactic, a perfectionistic approach, or a performative way of being in relationship, we're fawning. Yeah. We are not being our authentic selves. Now, the benevolent side of fawning is that I'm going to bring in the phrase tend and befriend, which is something that is very strongly associated with the female nervous system in particular. And so even though we could put this under the heading of a threat response, it's a very benevolent thing, because what we might seek to do sometimes is, okay, let me figure out how to cultivate relationship here to be able to then diffuse said threat.
Right.
So it actually has some real wisdom and could have real merit.
Yeah.
However, there's a limit.
Cost.
If there's a cost, well, and there can be a cost, but there's a limit to it. Like if a genuine compromise and meeting of minds can happen, beautiful. But if you're doing that to the point where you are now, completely playing a role as opposed to being your authentic self, and you are then tolerating, enduring, going along with things that you would not otherwise choose for yourself, we got a problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have this problem. Some of us know
all
we
genders,
do.
right? The different ways of expressing. How do you support people to come back to their wholeness when they realize, oh, I'm performing, I'm trying to please, I'm trying to, be in this perfectionistic role?
Yeah, well, I liken working with me to being in like your own personal intimacy laboratory. And so everything that we're doing together, me with my clients, it's an experiment. It's all one giant experiment and a lot of little experiments inside of that. So we get to do the experiment here of what happens if from the jump you're not performing. What happens if from the get-go we are attending to a few foundational things to really create a distinct set of circumstances? Number one, we're working with your nervous system from day one. Yep. So tending to that nervous system regulation, get up when you need to get up, go down when you need to go down, right? That is the foundation beneath everything that I do with my clients. And that is also giving them skills to be able to practice this out in the wilds of their life.
Yeah. Are there any main practices, just to refer so that people who haven't done any of these can understand what you're speaking to?
So I draw heavily from somatic experiencing, which is one of the modalities that I'm certified in and use with my clients. Neuroaffective touch is another one. And fundamentally, these are both modalities that really take a body-led and body-based approach to recognizing some of the patterns of dysregulation, dis-ease, unsafety that play out in the body, and supporting you in being able to complete whatever that trauma activation cycle that might not have completed. Like we can do work together to do that. Also, just to give you basic tools of like, oh, I'm feeling a little off center right now. I can pay attention to my feet. Here's what I can do with my breath. I can look around the room and inventory one thing for each sense as a way of getting myself into the present moment. So very simple, pragmatic tools at one end of the spectrum, and then things that I facilitate with my clients to really basically lend them my well-regulated nervous system.
And so that's profound, right? To also, I love what you're saying. I mean, those simple tools, so simple and yet so effective. And also on the other end, that profound way that we can go through these traumatic big T, little t, experiences and not, like you said, not complete them. And so we're left kind of half baked, walking around in the world, almost like live wires, right? And that your work can actually help someone, complete that cycle so that they can actually regulate or feel safer in their own body and being.
Yes. Thank you. You did a beautiful job rounding out that explanation for those who may have been like, what is she talking about? Another thing that is a foundational element is I bring in Betty Martin's work, which is the Wheel of Consent.
I love her
And
work.
even though I'm not necessarily trying to give my clients like master's degrees in it, we go in thoroughly enough to really be able to first and foremost we want to dismantle the power dynamics at play in the practitioner client role, because we're here for them. So even though they're here for my expertise, like we got to be really transparent about how power is at play in our relationship. So that they then also can have awareness of how it's playing out in their personal life,
relationship,
any aspect of their life, any relationship. And the key difference between Betty's work and what a lot of people's understanding of consent is like, a lot of us think about it very simplistic, like, well, you say yes to something and therefore you're giving consent. But we want to look in a more granular way of whatever the thing that we are going to do, who is it for? Whose desire motivates it? So
Interesting.
I can consent to doing something for you that you ask for.
Uh-huh.
And then it's a particular dynamic where you're like, let's just use us as a real example. If you're like, hey, Darshana, like, would you rub my shoulders right now? And I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
can do that
Okay.
for you. Like, I care about you. I want to make you feel good. So sure, let me go ahead and give you a shoulder rub.
Yeah.
Now, as long as I'm doing it the way that you want it, it's a consensual dynamic. But let's say as I'm giving you a shoulder rub, I decide, oh, I'm going to start running my fingers through your beautiful head of hair. I just flipped the dynamic. Now I'm doing something for me that you have not consented to necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You might like it, you might not.
Yeah.
But the point here is we go really into the granular to understand the role of who is the doer, who is the one that's being done to. You know, I know that's not proper English, but you get the point.
Yeah.
And then whose desire and preferences are motivating. How are we attending to any boundaries that either or both parties might have? Yeah. So it's more nuanced than just saying yes or saying no.
Yes.
It's understanding the power dynamics and whose desire drives the exchange. And then when we go real granular, it's kind of like the training wheels.
Yeah.
Like you need the training wheels on the bike at first so that you can ultimately coast without them.
Yes.
We go into these really deep definitions of how consent is established so that you will not have to necessarily check in about each and every little thing you're doing, which is another place that people have gotten very confused about consent.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, do I have to ask you before I do absolutely positively anything?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, the spirit behind that is well intended, that we want to be thorough. And also we need room for spontaneity. And one of the things that many of us desire is to feel our partner's leadership and to feel their desire for us.
Yeah.
So it's a very nuanced thing. And so this is a place where I spend a lot of time with my clients so that they're then equipped to go into the wilds of their relational life and have a sense of how these things are playing out.
What would you say that it does for them? I mean, I've done some of Betty Martin's work and I love it, especially even just the simplicity of the 3-minute game and being able to separate some of those pieces. I'm curious for someone who hasn't, right? What, again, going back into the concrete, like what does it do for a couple who in some ways they've already consented, they love each other, right? Or you could see consent like that. What does it do to get more granular for them?
Well, what's helpful is, especially in an established couple, chances are good that you've got a particular choreography, if you will, or script that you're following around your intimacy. And chances are also good that one or both of you does not like parts of it.
I was going to say,
you're just not satisfied.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, all right, yeah, like and you're probably thinking the other person does like it. So you're just keeping your mouth shut. And so what we really do here is create space to be more curious and to have more meaningful communication around what we actually want to do to each other, with each other, for each other in a physical intimacy context. And we get to look at, well, back to this example of a long-term couple, it's like, maybe you've been giving your partner blowjobs forever because you're convinced that is the absolute way that sex must begin. And he's over there or they're over there like, oral's not actually my favorite thing. And I'm just riffing here. Yeah. But there's a lot of assumptions that happen when we have been doing things a certain way for a long time and we kind of forget, like, how did we even get started with this particular?
Or it's scary sometimes to talk about it because right, you're already in this pattern and you don't want to rock the boat or mess things up or have someone feel bad or right. Oh, God forbids, they now know that I've been faking my pleasure for 10 years, which again is so black and white. And that's usually not true. There's nuance in there, but it can feel like, oh my God, if I say this, then it's going to seem like everything has been a farce.
Yeah. And that brings us to another significant piece of the erotic wholeness pie, which is cultivating communication skills, empowering your own voice, really learning how to feel confident that you can introduce a conversation that, yeah, it's going to feel
Yes.
vulnerable.
This
Okay.
is one of my
And
favorite parts.
You might be a little awkward about it. Okay.
Okay.
Like we
That's okay.
can do that anyway.
Yeah.
And when the thing that many of us are trying to avoid is disappointing another person, shaming another person.
Yeah.
So there's a fear for many of us that if I speak about desires different from what's been going on, my partner is going to think that I don't like having sex with them. And this has then everything to do with how you frame it. If you come to your partner being like, our sex life is just not doing it for me. Yeah, they're going to feel judged.
Right.
If you come to your partner and say, I really care about our intimacy and you are precious to me.
Yes.
And I feel like we've grown.
I want to explore.
We've grown in all these other ways. And I feel like this is kind of like uncharted territory. Like there's probably some more growth available for us here. Yes. Are you up for exploring that with me?
Yeah.
So that's a very different energetic.
That. It's a huge difference.
An invitation. It's an invitation as opposed to a criticism. And so, yeah, we learn how to invite our partners into this journey then of deepening intimacy together, whatever that partnership might be. Someone you're newly dating, someone you've been married to for 30 years, anywhere in between, you've got this possibility.
Yeah, I love it. Such a huge one. I mean, to bring something to a partner with complaint. I often talk about how complaint and desire are opposite sides of the same coin, right? You can complain and you can, be mad and upset. And usually we don't get what we want in that way. I have couples debrief sex. I'm sure I don't even know where this comes from or where, I created this, but I'm sure it's in some of the work that you've done too, where as you debrief and talk about sex and communicate about it after, right? You could say, well, that didn't work for me. Or you could say, here are the things that actually worked amazingly. And here's what I want more of, or here's what I would love to explore more of, as opposed to here's what I don't want any of next time. Right. So as we frame it that way, someone can actually take it in and be receptive and then want to grow and play with you more.
Yeah. Yeah. Growth. Play. These are wonderful qualities to ascribe to sex and to intimacy. And many of us get pretty far away from that. We, like I said, we've got that choreography, we've got that script that we're following, doing it the way we've been doing it for however long. And it's like, there is more. There's a lot more if we're willing to risk. And I'm using the word risk with intent here, to risk the vulnerability of saying, I do want more. That doesn't mean I don't like what's already going on here. And would you like to join me in that more? Yes. It's a beautiful thing.
It's such a beautiful thing. Well, thank you. This has been amazing. Is there anything else before we end that feels like, I wish I would have said that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many things
and we could go deeper into for hours and hours.
Yes, this felt like a really good little sampler, a little taster. The thing that I really always want to be clear to say at some point in a situation like this, if you heard anything that I talked about and were judging yourself, right? Like if you used any of my words as a weapon against yourself, please don't. Yeah. We are all just trying to figure this out, and most of us, this is an echo of an earlier mention, we haven't gotten the education we've needed. We haven't had the modeling or the guidance and support. So it makes a lot of sense that it's a perfectly imperfect mess sometimes. And please don't beat yourself up for that. The choice to move in the direction of more, that's going to help you then acquire the skills and have the experiences that over time make this all a little less awkward, let things feel a bit smoother. So yeah, I hope you see this as a seed of inspiration. Hear this as a gentle nudge toward your growth and toward your pleasure, because that's what's available for you.
One of the things I'm really appreciating about you is being able to take this vast and vulnerable topic and communicate it in a way that's so grounded and clear, and I see that in Betty Martin's work and in the way you talk about things too, where it's there can be structure without passion and heart, and there can be passion and heart that's structureless. And I think things tend to go best when there's a really powerful mix of both. And so we can let go into the flow, but we have ways that we know that we're safe and we know that we're held and we know we can check in and, things like that. And so I'm appreciating, I feel that in you as you talk about all of this.
100%. I so appreciate that reflection. Thank you.
Where can people find you?
You can come on over to my website, darshanaavila.com, and that's where you can learn more about working with me, which I have clients come from all over the US, from different parts of the world. It's possible to do deep diving immersions, which is kind of like your very own sex, love, and goop experience, what you see me doing on Netflix. I have online courses and a free community called Galgasm that's got a library full of resources in it. So there's a lot of ways, and of course, Instagram, YouTube, those kind of places. So website is the easiest jumping off point. And I absolutely love hearing from y'all. So if you want to drop me a note and say, I heard you here on this podcast, that would be so lovely.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Practicing Love. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and gained insight into yourself and your current and past relationships and inspiration for what's possible. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review to help people find us. If you'd like more support in your love life, be sure to get your free copy of my best-selling book, Honest Sex, at shanajamescoaching.com/free. That's shanajamescoaching.com/free. And we'll see you next time.